Hi, Julie.
Thank you.
Councillor Stewart, we'll be ready starting in a minute.
Very good. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at the Municipal Administration Center, beginning at 5 o'clock on February 14th, 2024. With roll call, Deputy Mayor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Blackwell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Present.
Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Prenger.
Present.
Councillor Steinoff Gray.
Present.
Councillor Stewart.
Present.
And I'd like to acknowledge our CAO and clerk at the front desk, as well as various members of our municipal staff supporting our meeting this evening. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made, both in caring for this land and shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. As a public service organization, we're dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to actions that move us towards a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis.
Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda that council would like to propose? Councillor Blackwell?
Thank you. Through you, I'm wondering whether we are doing, there was an email from our clerk about adding 2 items, which are for airport hangar leases.
Yes, the clerk had brought those to my attention, so thank you for that. To clarify that, there is a consideration of a bylaw. It'll be assigning existing airport hangar lease per the existing agreements and our so there is that a motion we need?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd like to make that a motion, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. I'd like to add those to the agenda. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Kavanaugh. Any discussion? And all in favor? That's carried. Once again, I'd like, just as far as a procedural issue, We have a closed session meeting scheduled with our lawyer at 6:30. So we will take a bio break at 6:25 and we'll have our closed session. And then if there are any items on the open agenda, we'll return to those following. I'd like to remind any council members to disclose the pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof now or as it arises in the meeting. And I need, as we continue, we need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the regular and special council meetings held on January 24, 2024 and January 29, 2024 be adopted as printed, moved by councilors Hinchberger and Blackwell. Any discussion? All in favor? Those are carried. And we move into our public meeting section. We have 3 items under matters for public participation. One is regarding a minor variance, a committee of adjustment meeting. We also have 2 public meetings, one regarding our community improvement plan and one regarding a planning report for a rezoning. If there's any members of the public who would like to be continued to be informed of these items, there is a sheet on the table just outside the council doors here. This evening, sometime when you got here, as you're leaving, if you'd like to be kept in the loop, so to speak, please sign your name, give us our contact information, and our staff will make sure that you are informed of the decisions and events. All right, so we move into the committee of adjustment. So we need a mover and seconder that we move into committee of adjustment and upon completion, return to council, moved by councilors Kavanaugh and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? That's carried. So I'd like to call to order the Committee of Adjustment meeting at the Municipality of Kincardine at 5:04 in the council chambers. Once again, disclose any pecuniary interest now or as it arises. We have the adoption of minutes. Need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment from November 8, 2023 to be adopted as printed, moved by Councilors Hinchberger and Steinoff Gray. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. So we have a minor variance application from ES Fox 5568 Highway 9. And we would ask Planner Wellwood to explain the report and recommendations, please. That's not you, but that's okay.
Right. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the application before you is a proposal to expand a legal non-conforming use. The proposal itself is a 1,500 meter, roughly, square meter addition to an existing warehouse facility in Millerton. The warehouse is not permitted in the C3 Hamlet Highway Commercial Zone, but the facility did predate the most recent comprehensive review of the zoning bylaw in 2012, and the applicant's solicitors confirmed the legal non-conforming. So under the Planning Act, there are 2 tests for an expansion to a legal non-conforming use, whether it's desirable for appropriate development of the lands and whether it would result in undue adverse impacts to neighboring uses. So in considering those 2 tests, the warehouse use is permitted in the official plan. There are no sensitive land uses to the rear where the expansion is proposed. The applicant has provided a report outlining stormwater management, servicing, site grading, as well as an archaeological report demonstrating that would be appropriate for development of the land. And finally, MTO was satisfied that access can be provided from Side Road 10 as opposed to Highway 9. Given the above, staff are of the opinion that the proposal satisfies those 2 tests of the Planning Act, meets the provincial policy statement and the county official plan, and that we recommend the application be approved. But I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for that presentation. There's a bit of a process we'll go through, but we will get back to the questions in a minute. So there is opportunity for the applicant to make presentation. Is there anyone here from ES Fox that would like to speak to this application? If you'd like to, just come to the microphone and give your name, please, sir.
My name is Bill Stark. I'm construction lead on the project at the warehouse in Millerton. What was laid out here is pretty well straightforward. We're gonna expand the warehouse, clean the building up, new siding, new roof, new entrance from the side road there, and make the building look a lot nicer and continue on with the existing function. Basically to receive material that's going to Bruce Power for upgrades over the next several years. It's basically shipping and receiving. There's no work being done at the warehouse. It's just basically a shipping, receiving, QA, quality control. That's the function there. That's it.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Are there any presentations from any member of the public? Is there any presentations from any member of the public? Seeing none, we move to questions from any council member. Any questions of the application? Seeing none, we need a mover and seconder that the Committee of Adjustment approve the minor variance from ES Fox for the property described as 5568 Highway 9 to permit 1,486 square meter expansion of the warehouse in the rear yard. Moved by Councillor Steinoff, Gray, and Blackwell. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Thank you for your continued presence in our municipality. Pass on our congratulations to your company. All right. Need a mover and seconder that the Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourn at 5:09. Councillors Kavanaugh and Prenger, all in favor? That's carried. We return to our open meeting in our general council meeting. We're moving on to our community improvement plan, the public meeting, the legislated public meeting that we are to have. So we need a mover and seconder that, subject to a review of submissions arising from this public meeting, that council adopt a new community improvement plan and areas for the municipality of Kincardine and the necessary bylaws be forwarded to council for adoption. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Hinchberger. And at this point, I would like to invite our Manager of Economic Development, Sherry Leslie, to lead the discussion here this evening. Not so much. Our Manager of Strategic Initiatives.
Through you, Mayor Craig. I'm just going to do a little bit of an intro and then I'm going to pass it over to Sherry and to Jeff. Staff have been working with Bruce County's economic development staff to create a new community improvement plan that aligns with the enhanced Spruce the Bruce. It provides a greater range of incentives that could support more priority areas like improvements to our downtowns, affordable attainable housing, industrial and highway commercial, business park development, and the agricultural sector. The draft CIP was brought forward to council for review in November 2023 before we submitted it to the province. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has since reviewed the draft CIP and has had no concerns. And we had a really quick response, which was awesome. A public meeting is required under the Planning Act prior to the CIP being adopted by council, and that's kind of where we're at. And I'm going to turn it over to Sherry Leslie, our Economic Development Coordinator, and Jeff Loney, the Economic Development Manager for Bruce County. But just before I do that, I do really want to acknowledge and thank the work that both Sherry and Jeff have done. And in particular, Jeff, acknowledge your expertise to help us navigate the CIP process. I think we had such a great response with the province, partially because of your expertise in this matter. So thank you. So I'm turning over to Sherry.
Thanks, Lori. And just to reiterate a little bit from our last update to council on our CIP program, we do currently have a CIP in place. It's again only focused in downtown Kincardine, which allows businesses to access facade grants, signage grants, all through the county. Our new proposed CIP Also includes downtown Tiverton. I mean, so we've been working with the businesses in the community there to do some work around our facade guidelines and the community branding, so that if this is approved, then we can move forward so that businesses there could also be eligible for funding. We do have quite a vast array of programs in the proposed CIP, and it's important to note that we wouldn't have to implement all of those. We could pick and choose, kind of review annually what priorities council has. And staff would come forward with a report identifying what the priorities we feel are the best priorities for the upcoming year, and make some budget recommendations for implementation. And I guess with that, if this is approved, staff will be presenting that follow-up report to council in, I guess, the next little while. And I'll pass it over to Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry, and through you, Mayor Craig. Bruce County has been excited to participate with the municipality of Kincardine in redevelopment of this community improvement plan. This is one of 7 community improvement plans across the county that are going through this process, but this one is uniquely developed for Kincardine. CIPs have been a historical tool that municipalities have put in place to help drive investment, to look at downtown revitalization, and the tool you have in front of you represents both of those things. Recently, the Minister of Economic Development was quoted saying municipalities who are ready for investment and have the ability to manage things through tools like a community improvement plan put themselves well ahead in that race for new investment. The program in front of you has expanded, as Sherry mentioned, and it includes the entire municipality now, and it gives you that opportunity to use these tools while you need them, but doesn't behold you to actually approve any of these incentives. The 3 buckets now contained within them include pre-development and development incentives. These are things like tax increment financing, reduction of municipal rates, and other powerful tools during that development process that you can choose to use. These also allow Bruce County to participate in a number of these programs, and those programs are outlined in section 5.3.1 of this document. Secondly, you have your building and property incentives. These are your more classical downtown revitalization tools, looking at things like the support of signage, the support of facades, and other more specialized programs targeting accommodations or agricultural uses. Last but not least, in section 5.3.3, you have the Spruce the Bruce grants. These are the grants and incentives that are provided directly by the County of Bruce. What this update will allow you to do is to access the 4 newest grants, which include agricultural innovation. It includes tourism support for businesses outside of your core areas. It also includes residential for buildings that are mixed use and have the opportunity to intensify their residential, as well as accessibility grants for businesses across your municipality. The next steps in this process is if this bylaw is approved tonight, it will go through the typical planning process. On notification of approval, you have a 20-day appeal period. If an appeal is taken during that time, it will go through your LPAT processes similar to any planning application. If no appeal is seen, what you're going to see is this come into force and effect. From both a county and a municipal perspective, that means 20 days following that approval. If no appeal is in place, these incentives can be used at any time. I think I will leave it there, and I know I'm happy to answer any questions from yourselves or from the public if they arise.
Thank you, Lori, Sherry, and Jeff. We read the report, extensive, informative. I can't imagine the amount of time that was invested in creating it. It's way longer than the time it took to read it. So thank you so much for what you've done in that regard. All right, so at this point, we have opportunity to hear any presentations from the public regarding the CIP bylaw that's being presented this evening. Are there any presentations from the public? No. Yes, sir, thank you. Just state your name and for the record, and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. I'll give you a very brief of who I am. My name is James McCurry. I'm a resident of Inver Huron. I'm here tonight to represent both myself and my family as property owners in Inver Huron, and also to give a very brief description and on behalf of PWEP, the Philosopher's Role Environmental Preserve. We have submitted some documentation to both Council as well as Bruce County to do with the CIP. And if the council will allow, I'll read some very brief statements. You should all have had copies of these. I know that the county has, and we sent them to Jennifer Laurie as well. I'm going to concentrate this evening on how the CIP may or may not affect the residents of Inver Huron, development in Inver Huron, and some of our general concerns about that. We're not opposed in any way to a CIP in general. The understanding that if you want to improve businesses, access to businesses, storefronts, so on and so forth, we think that's a really good idea for the municipality and most of the residents as a whole. However, I'll read a prepared statement. As I say, you should all have had a copy of this. It was forwarded by a woman by the name of Tessa Gerling, who is a director of PWEP. Very basically, my background is I'm a licensed construction boilermaker. I have 43 years in the field of heavy construction, or approximately 75,000 field hours. The last 13 years I've spent at Bruce Power. My background in heavy construction goes across all industries. That would be petrochemicals, refining, conventional generation, as well as nuclear generation. So I'll read where we have some concerns about the draft CIP, and I'll make some references. I'm not going to read the entire document because I understand that my time is somewhat limited. So PWEP is the Philosopher's Role Environmental Preserve. It is a private NGO. We are a nonprofit organization. We have formed from a local group, and our basic concern is overdevelopment or forced development in the Inver Huron area and why we have concerns about that. So our first concern would be pre-development and development incentives, which is draft plan of CIP page 12. These incentives seem to be aimed at encouraging and streamlining development. This kind of incentive program strikes us as premature in an area where land designation is being contested, as is the case for Inver Huron. Generally, PWEP is opposed to this type of high-density, large-scale development typical of primary or secondary settlement areas for Inver Huron, due to environmental, planning, and community concerns, amongst other issues. Furthermore, putting in place a new settlement designation or a development incentive as outlined in the draft CIP is an understanding that a capacity study must be conducted for Inver Huron. This is in reference to Bruce County Official Plan 4.7.6, page 53 states, a settlement capacity shall be prepared in support of a local official plan or an amendment where significant development is proposed or where settlement area designation is proposed to be expanded or where significant health and welfare considerations need to be addressed. Such local official plan amendment shall be prepared in conformity with the conclusions and recommendations of the settlement capacity. Municipalities are encouraged to prepare a comprehensive settlement capacity study where significant development is proposed. So we ask that an assessment of the appropriate type and level of servicing necessary to support future growth and development, including financing, phasing, and administrative requirements. An analysis of the hydrology and the hydrogeology to determine the capability of the surface and groundwater resources to provide sufficient quantity and quality of water supply and to accept various types of sewage effluent. Where municipal services exist.
Mr. McCreary?
Yes.
We're talking about the plan itself, and if you could keep the comments focused on the benefits or the from what you see as perhaps some negative outcomes of the CIP. We're fully aware of the environmental challenges, but if you could draw our attention to what you see as the challenges, you know, rather than reading the official plan, which we are
Understood.
able to just
Fair enough.
to the narrower the comments, the easier it is for us to understand the challenges you're facing there, please, sir.
Perfect. So as previously stated, number one primary is a pre-development and development incentive and our concerns to do with that. We also have a concern about the surplus land program. And the surplus land program, which is draft CIP, page 15, PWEP is concerned that lands in Inverhuron, which the municipality may wish to declare as surplus, could potentially be slated for development before the issues enumerated in a previous point has been addressed. According to our understanding, surplus land can be acquired at little or no cost. Therefore, this program could potentially end up incentivizing large-scale development, which PWEP and the vast majority of residents of Inverhuron are adamantly opposed to, as you're well aware, Mr. Mayor. We would like to learn to what specific plans the municipality may currently have for declaring lands in Inverhuron surplus and be kept informed of these plans as they evolve in a timely manner, so that PWEP and the community may weigh on these decisions. We would like to take the opportunity to remind council that PWEP is still awaiting a response from the municipality and the county with regards to questioning pertaining to Inverhuron's land use designation, which is attached on Schedule A. We have attached a PWEP statement of concern regarding the land use designation for Inverhuron submitted to the municipality and the county, and we have not heard a response back either from the county or the municipality. So our concerns essentially are that, without getting into either of the developments that we're contesting, one is in court, so we won't speak to that. Sundance is upcoming. There has been documentation released through IDRA and through PWEP and through our councillor, Mr. Stewart. There are serious concerns about forcing development on Inverhuron. Again, the CIP in general and its general intent of what I'm understanding council is attempting to do to improve storefronts, recreational parks, facilities, so on and so forth, both in Tiverton and Kincardine, we're not opposed to. Our opposition has been and continues and will continue to be the fact that if you're trying to force large-scale development on a very small rural area whose infrastructure is not set up to support this, we have serious concerns about that. So again, pre-development and development incentives, as well as the surplus plan, are our two primary concerns that we've seen with the CIP. We feel in general, that the residents of Inverhuron are not consulted enough about this. I know that Councillor Stewart does support us, and to a certain degree, so does Steinhoff Gray. What we need to know is what are the exact plans as uses for CIP. Primary concern to me personally, based on the 2015, 2016 sewer fiasco, is these grants would allow Kincardine Municipal Council to force a sanitary sewer system on Inverhuron, which would enhance your ability to create development, large-scale development in particular. My concern personally about that, and PWEP's concern and the concerns of the Inverhuron residents, are when the sanitary sewer system came up between 2008 and 2015, there was a huge discussion of what went on. Council felt at the time you could put sewers in there using a grinder pump system so that you could enhance development in the area for about $3 million. I demanded an independent engineering survey in 2015, which was done by a subsidiary of SNC Lavalin, and we found out that that sanitary sewer system would actually cost the municipality between $16 and $18 million. Those are in 2016 dollars. An attempt.
Mr. McCurry,
Yes.
we're talking about the CIP and not so much about the sanitary sewer cost or installation. So just
Again, I'm trying to keep it as narrow as possible. I understand exactly where you're going.
narrow, squeeze a little tighter, please,
100%.
sir.
Again, my concern is that the CIP, as it affects Inverhuron directly, the CIP would make available large sums of grant money that could easily force vast, large-scale subdivision type developments on Inverhuron. We are adamantly opposed to those type of developments. The infrastructure does not exist. I think we've all seen the last 7% tax increase that came out. If these land use designations, which you can use this CIP to easily do to force large-scale development on the lower and upper Inverhuron area, it will be an absolute fiasco and disastrous from an environmental point of view. Those are our primary concerns. So rather than me read from any more prepared statements, why don't I take questions from council?
Thank you for your presentation. We will continue with the process, and if there are any questions, they will be addressed your way, Mr. McCurry. Thanks very much for coming tonight.
Will it be possible to, since this is a public meeting, there is one other statement I'd like to read. I'd like to allow other people to speak before the mic rather than hog the mic for more than my 5 minutes. So I can come back up. Council's choice.
Okay, so we have received this, the other statement that you would like to present, Mr. McCurry?
You
Is
have
that the
this,
one, is
yep.
that the one that was distributed through council?
The secondary statement with the statement of concern, RE Inver-Huron land designation use, and this was sent to council as well as
Yeah.
Bruce County on the 11th of January.
So that is, thank you for offering that, but that is significantly outside the conversation regarding CIP. Each one of the council members did read it. I'm expecting if it was circulated. So I would offer that that's not an appropriate presentation at this time, Mr. McCreary. Thank you for that.
Could you explain to me then, Mr. Mayor, exactly how, since this is about the community improvement plan, which does allow land designation changes and it's a bylaw that could easily affect that, why I'm not being allowed to read that into the record for the public?
Well, two reasons. First off, it already is a public document because we received it and as has our clerk, so it's already a public document. And secondly, we're talking about the and I'm going to offer Mr. Loney the opportunity to comment here too, in case I'm wandering off as well. But the CIP is a program that is used to offer, just as you've commented, incentives for construction, for business enhancement. It doesn't talk to land designations in that effect. So, Mr. Loney, is that actually, we're going to hold this question for when we get to the question period, and we'll talk about it then. Once again, Mr. McCreary, thanks for coming, and those are the two statements that you had wanted to present to council.
They are. I haven't presented the second statement, so I've presented one statement. Can I
Uh,
have confirmation from Ms. Laurie that she has received both these documents?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, sir. Are there any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the public? All right, questions or clarifications from council? Before we get to that, I'd like to have Mr. Loney just confirm. Have you received a copy of the statement that the Philosophers Will Environmental Group sent us, or were you aware of that one already?
Thank you, and through you, yes, we have received those statements.
So can you just comment broadly whether or not those would affect our decision in any regard this evening, please, sir?
Through you, I'll pick up on the ability to change land designations. Community improvement plan is developed, and what is contained within it is outlined in the Planning Act. It does not allow the community improvement plan to make changes to anything else contained within the Planning Act, and as such has no authority over other planning matters, including many of those discussed today.
So an application would have to go through the prescribed application processes, the Planning Act, and the CIP stands outside any of those applications. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions, comments from council members regarding what we've heard this evening? Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Because just one of the comments that you said, because it would help, I think, bring calm. You had mentioned that we have discretionary ability to decide what we want to do through this program. So just approving this program doesn't necessarily mean that it's holistic, I guess. We can choose focus areas. I guess I'm trying to understand how that gets, how I guess I get to that level of openness without coming off as being unfair. If someone's applying and I have this written CIP and they see the application and I say, actually, we're not focusing on that right now. I just have a concern when we could have people seeking application and then obviously denying them. I'd like to better understand what you meant by our ability to itemize the plan.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, the opportunity that exists within a community improvement plan is always there. So anything that has been included in this plan gives the municipality the ability to action it. What that means is that you also do not have to action any of those items. There's a number of ways as a municipality that you can handle that process through prioritization, through council setting what grants may be available. Essentially, you have many different ways that pick and choose how and when you use these items. Unlike most policies that behold the municipality to do something, a community improvement plan gives you the opportunity to do something and the opportunity to not do something. So I would have to defer to Kincardine staff on how that prioritization will be undertaken, but I will note that every municipality that has and operates a community improvement plan has to make additional decisions through policy and prioritization about how and when they choose to use incentives.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you through you, Mayor. I'd just like to follow up on your line of thinking with the question to Mr. Loney that in spite of what may be written in a community improvement plan, it doesn't usurp the authority of the Planning Act and any of the processes within it, whether that would be to revise the official plan and land designations therein or a specific planning act application. And there would remain in each of those parts of those processes opportunity for public consultation and input on any changes that might be proposed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I just want to say thank you for the time and effort that staff has put into this and making this a reality. We've seen the benefits firsthand with downtown Kincardine and how it has benefited from the community improvement plan that exists there. And I really look forward to seeing how we can target that into the village of Tiverton as well and how they can benefit from one going forward.
If I might offer just a slight aside from that, we saw a presentation at County Council last time, the effects of the Spruce to Bruce program in particular. And when you put all the slides, the before and after pictures, the change in community is remarkable when opportunities like these are offered and expanded within a community. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that comment. I went to a fantastic session at a conference, and they spoke about the impact of CIPs. And in the town of Minto, they were talking for every dollar that they invested in their CIP, they got at least 4 back in economic development and enhanced properties. So I'm really excited about this. I am also excited to see that it's expanding. I'm also very excited that we're going to be eligible for the accessibility grant going forward. I think that that will be something that, if that's chosen as one of our priority areas, partnering with the Bruce. So thank you very much for your work on this.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Let me get unmuted. Thank you very much. And through you, Mayor, I've been participating in all the basically public meetings, and Sherry, Laurie, you did a great job in putting the plan together. I do have a concern. I do have some comments. Schedule B sort of scares me. You know, when you start talking about the summary of development and pre-development incentives, you're starting to talk about tax dollars. You're starting to talk about reductions of development fees. This is fairly new to us. The existing Kincardine CIP had nothing to do with this part of this. So Schedule B, we have experienced in the past some problems with Sobeys. You know, besides Sobeys and the land beside No Frills with putting investment in and not seeing returns. So I'm just sort of coaching the council that I know that we have the final say, but we're going to have to tread lightly when it comes to Schedule B. They can be very costly very quickly.
Just a comment, CAO, please.
Sure, through you, Mayor. Just to reiterate and highlight for the public and for council, something that was mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, there will be a report that staff prepare that identify some considerations about where you might want to focus your efforts. So with respect to the funding, again, we had that discussion during the budget deliberations. Their council has opted to have some funds in there. There may be years in which the budget deliberations determine that there aren't going to be funds for CIPs in that particular year, but having the CIP available still will make it available to potential county grants. So having that open is still a useful and beneficial thing for the businesses, but it is something that we are coming back with
depending on the outcome of tonight's meeting, with considerations for council to determine where they want to focus and a process by which applications can be reviewed.
Oh, Councillor Stewart, I'm sorry. Yep.
Sorry, no. Through you, Chair. I just wanted to tell the public, even if council approves this tonight, there's a 20-day appeal period. Is that not correct? Could I maybe talk to Laurie? So there's still another 20-day appeal period after, if we decide to approve it tonight, for the public to make comments. Thank you.
Not so much comments, Councillor Stewart. It would be an appeal of the bylaw that we would be addressing. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good point. Well taken, though. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. This may be the wrong question. I'm going to ask it of our CAO. Apologies up front. I think that maybe if we were, I don't want to confuse this plan that's before us with potentially having like a secondary settlement plan to address some of the concerns that are being raised. So I actually see it as maybe two streams. If you could give me some guidance on where we are with pursuing a secondary settlement plan, that would be helpful.
So that question has nothing to do with the conversation regarding CIPs. It was correctly pointed out by Mr. Loney and Councillor Hinchberger that the CIP is stands outside and alone, different from the zoning or land use applications. So it's just a totally different thing. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I just wanted to clarify a little bit. Council will have the option through that report coming back to identify what areas we're interested in. But ultimately, it will be up to staff to assess and approve applications.
Go ahead.
Through you, it depends on the process council determines. So in some cases, particularly in the initial phases, it may be a committee that is struck, which includes members from council. Many times it's staff, but it will depend on what it is that council prioritizes. And then as well, that's how we would also advertise it to the community so that the applications we receive match what it is that council has prioritized.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor that we, subject to the review of submissions, council adopt a new community improvement plan and areas for the municipality of Kincardine and the necessary bylaws be forwarded to council for adoption. So we're directing staff this evening to move forward with the bylaw to be brought forward to council. Correct? Is that what that says? That's what it says to me. Okay, we're all clear with that? All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that is carried. Once again, thank you, Laurie and Jeff and Sherry. We appreciate the work that's gone into it. All right, we have a planning application from Don and Diane MacArthur, 1397 Concession 9. And I need a mover and seconder that council approves zoning bylaw amendment application Z 2023-058 for Don and Diane MacArthur for 1397 Concession 9, Municipality of Kincardine, moved by councillors Blackwell and Deputy Mayor Clark. So at this point, I would like to ask Julie Steeper to explain the report and recommendation, please.
Thank you for having me this evening. The purpose of the application is to rezone the property to permit the construction of a residence on a remnant farm parcel from a previous severance that was conducted in 2014. If approved, this application would facilitate a construction of a single detached dwelling at 1397 Concession 9. The property is located east of Highway 21 and south of Concession 9 and north of Concession 7. The property is surrounded by agricultural and commercial uses. In review of the previous history and policies, staff determined that prohibiting the construction of a dwelling on the retained farmlands was unnecessary given the previous severance was for commercial use. Staff are of the opinion the protection and restriction were not required given the circumstances. The proposed application is consistent with provincial and official plan policies. Updated hazard mapping was provided by the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. This will result in the EP area, the Environmental Protection Designation area, becoming larger. However, the applicant has cited the proposed residential dwelling outside the hazard area. No comments of concern were received from agencies or the public on this application, and this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steeper. Well-presented report. Are there any comments from the applicant themselves? Okay. Are there any presentations? Are there any presentations from the public? Any presentations from anyone from the public? Seeing none. Any questions for clarification from council? Oh, Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Julie, good presentation. I'm just a little bit concerned. Are we opening up a new box here? Because we told the person back in 2014 there was no way of ever building a house, and now we're changing our mind 10 years later. Are we opening up something like Pandora's box that all these other sevences and the housing away from the agricultural land, they're going to come back and ask for housing approval?
If I may, through you, Mayor, I would say this is not opening a Pandora's box. In this case, the restriction was unintentionally applied, I believe, due to the fact that there was a house and a commercial use. In this case, it was clearly identified with the previous application was for a commercial severance. I think the situation which you're speaking to is what we call surplus farm dwelling severances. This is not applied as a surplus farm dwelling severance and was pretty clear in the previous application. And so that's why in this case, the restriction is not necessarily required. And if someone were to apply for a similar severance today, that restriction wouldn't be applied in this situation.
Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate it, Julie.
Any further questions? All right, so we have mover and seconder. The council approved the zoning bylaw for the application. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. All right, matters for discussion and direction. Staff reports. Kincardine Airport Operation Review. We need a mover and seconder. The council receive report operations 2024-04 for information purposes, moved by Councillors Hinchberger and Deputy Mayor Clark. Director Weiser.
Thank you, Mayor Craig. So the report essentially was prepared to provide council a summary of what we've completed from the strategic plan that was done back a number of years ago. That was completed in 2013. The majority of the work that is listed there is associated with the main runway upgrades that were done. And then certainly a few other things in consideration. The other piece that's highlighted here for council is that in 2018, an RFP was conducted for the airport service provider. And through that, the current service provider was selected. They provided us with a number of deliverables within their proposal, and so offered a summary of those highlights as well. So given the new term of council and some historical discussions around the airport, we thought it would be prudent to just give an overview and a summary of things.
Comments, questions? Keeping in mind this is for information. Okay, Councillor? Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. There was one question I had, if I could, Adam, and I know it's just for information, so it's okay if you can't answer it. But there was a area that sounded like we did own some land that could have been used for extending the runways, but then in other parts it sounded like we'd have to procure. I was actually quite confused by that passage. It sounded like we did, but we didn't. If you could just clarify, I'd appreciate it.
So through you, Mayor Craig, in order to extend the runways, we would need to obtain land. So if you were to dig into the requirements for a runway extension for the main runway, so going east and west, essentially we would have to contact the ministry and get them to resituate the location of the highway. The location of the bluff is problematic to the west, so there would be land acquisition, road relocation, and then similar if we were to extend 0523, which is your north-south runway, we would have to obtain land to the south.
All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Traffic and parking bylaw amendment. Need a mover and seconder that the amendment as set out in Report Operations 2024-05 be approved by council. Moved by councilors Inchberger and Deputy Mayor Clark. Hi, Corey. Welcome. You want to comment on this, or do you just want to wait for questions?
I can wait for questions.
Questions from council members? Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. I've shared a couple of my concerns around the increase in speed on some of these roads that don't have adequate sidewalks or bike lanes. And I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit on the rationale for the proposal to increase the speed again.
Through you, Mayor, some of the areas that were brought to our attention from the OPP around areas that could be higher than the 40 kilometers. So in essence, we didn't increase them. This is what they were previously. So we are just reverting back to what they previously were. So not increasing the speed from historical speed allotments.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Corey, I like what you're proposing here, but the problem is, how do you enforce it? It's great to have these speed limits and posting, as you're well aware of, but are the OPP planning to add more vehicles on this? Because, enforcement's really the true picture here. It's great to post it, but we need to enforce it too.
Through you, Mayor, OPP are well aware of the areas of concern that we bring to them. Anytime that we do traffic counts, speed verifications, stuff like that with our radar detections, all that is given to the OPP for them to evaluate areas. They do an evaluation to see if higher patrol is needed in those areas. So we will certainly look at problematic areas along the way and pass that information along for them to evaluate, to see if they need to conduct a higher patrol in those areas.
Thank you for your comments.
All right, we have a motion in front of us to the amendments be approved by council. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Bruce Energy Center, potable water supply, environmental services. We need a mover and seconder that council direct staff to correspond with Bruce Energy Center that the municipality is willing to consider an agreement between the parties to expand the planned scope of the municipal environmental assessment work related to water source options to the community of Tiverton to include potable water supply to the BEC, subject to the Bruce Energy Center fully funding the expanded scope of the investigation. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Blackwell. Director, please.
Thanks. Through you, Mayor Craig. Council had provided direction to staff following a delegation of Nancy Mickey from the BEC. So through that, started looking at the consideration for undertaking next steps with that project. And so one of the, I guess, gaps here is that there essentially isn't a funding mechanism. Typically, the municipality wouldn't fund review for supporting private developments and making servicing available to them. The other piece of that is that technically it would be considered bonusing under the Municipal Act. So we're coming back to council with that information and suggesting that if we are to continue with things, that we approach the group from around Farrell Drive at the BEC and get their support to financially cover the cost to undertake that review.
Questions, comments? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mayor, great report, Adam. I can support it 100%. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? That's carried. Kincardine Kinloss Drain Tender Environmental Services. We need a mover and seconder. The council award the contract for the Kincardine Kinloss Municipal Drain Tender to Dawson Construction Corporation for the bid price of $161,075.90, including municipal share of HST. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Kavanaugh. Mark, welcome. You waiting for questions, or do you have anything to comment first?
I can wait.
Any questions for this? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Front end agreement summary, development services. Need a mover and seconder that council receive report development services 2024-04 for information purposes. Moved by councillor Hinchberger and Prenger. Any questions regarding this report? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. MTO Russell Street and Sidewalk Maintenance Agreements. We need a mover and seconder. The council direct staff to move forward with the execution of the Highway 21 at Russell Street legal agreement and the sidewalk maintenance agreement, and further that the mayor and clerk sign any necessary documents related to the agreement, and that council direct staff to enter into a front-ending agreement with the beneficiaries for cost recovery from the improvements, and further that council direct staff to undertake an update to the ASDC, area-specific development charge, should the property owners not be agreeable to a front-ending agreement inclusive of a budget amendment to undertake the study. Moved and seconded by councillors Hinchberger and Prenger. You want to take a whirl at explaining this a bit, Director, before we get into the questions? Thank you.
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Craig. So the prior report actually was a bit of a preamble for this, and to give council a good outlay of the commitments that this term and the past term of council have made financially, and what those, investments look like from a payback perspective. With respect to this year, we've been working with the MTO for their upgrades at both Russell Street and Kincardine Ave over the last few years. With Russell Street specifically, one of the components of that upgrade is to look at constructing what I refer to as the east leg, which would access the business park if Russell Street were to expand and extend to the east. The reason that discussions took place roughly 2 years ago to consider that is that we were dealing with developers at the site and looking at opportunities to advance things within Smart Centers lands and the other ownership groups. So with that in mind, the MTO has incorporated into their costing and their design the construction of that east leg. And so what that includes is essentially a road stub to the east, as well as any of the turn lanes that would help facilitate those movements in the grand build out of that intersection, as opposed to piecemealing it in some fashion. And so the MTO requires that an agreement be entered into with a governing body, so in our case with the lower tier, and so that our arrangement is strictly between the ministry and the municipality. And then any other type of agreements that the municipality, or it could be a county or another road authority, but we would then seek financial recuperation from other beneficiaries. So the other piece of the agreement, the secondary agreement, would be for the long-term maintenance of the proposed sidewalk that would be constructed within that intersection. Similar to Durham Street, as an example, it's our sidewalk machine in the winter that comes through there and removes the snow and puts down sand and salt to make sure things are safe for pedestrian usage. And so that's the intent of that agreement, as well as if the sidewalk became damaged, that we would be responsible for repair and replacement of those sections. The funding component of things and the two components of the motion there, we're suggesting to council to direct staff to pursue a front-ending agreement with the beneficiaries. So there are two landowners that are sitting and are assigned to the current area-specific development charge. So anytime a net hectare or acre of their land develops, they would then have to pay back based on that development charge that's been created for that site. The kicker is that we don't start recuperating those costs until they start developing those lands. So we started putting pipes in the ground back in 2020. So we're looking at, three plus almost 4 years, and we've recouped minimal amounts to date. The Lakeside dealership is all that we've seen for development. And so by suggesting a front-ending agreement, what the hope of that is that we would put within the terminology within that agreement that they would have requirements to make payment at certain dates. And so an example, the Mount Forest Ave agreement that we just entered into recently with the two beneficiaries, developers there, they're required to pay the municipality their portions of those costs once our construction is completed. So based on our proposed timelines there, we're looking at a June completion. So in theory, we would start getting that money back in July. And so the benefit here is that these developers would then have to pay once our construction is completed of the intersection. So we've constructed the intersection, the MTO has invoiced the municipality, and then we can turn around and re-invoice that back out to the developers, the beneficiaries. And then, hopefully the other tangible benefit there is that they then have some financial stake in the game and some incentive to move in terms of development of their sites. If that was unsuccessful, an opportunity would be to amend the area-specific development charge for that site. Prior to amendments under the Development Charges Act, they only had a 5-year shelf life. That is now 10. So our current ASDCs are set to lapse. The OPF one is this year, and then in 2025 would be the ASDC for this site specifically. So if we were unsuccessful on the front-ending agreement, we would look to amend the area-specific development approach, and then that way the costs that have been incurred for servicing extension across the highway, as well as servicing that runs north-south along Millennium Way, and then for the Durham Street extension, we would add these costs to that. And if that were the case, the opportunity to look at the external borrowing that we did for the existing works, we took out a loan in the range of 4.25 million and have only actually used just shy of 2 million on that. So we would look to leverage funds that way on a interim basis until development was triggered and recuperation happened. So that's a long ramble, but back to, I guess, kind of the premise of what we would prefer. That's the front-ending agreement to minimize the additional financial risk and exposure to the municipality.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It won't personally change my vote on the matter, but when the stub is built east of 21, does it extend far enough that pedestrian access across 21 at the Russell Street intersection will allow people to go basically into the Meridian Sobey area without having to just go across the highway and then walk north along the east side of 21?
So through you, Mayor Craig, they would essentially come to a dead end. They would have to walk through the field, which I guess in theory they could, but realistically, yeah, they would have to walk along the highway in the short term.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, this may be a relevant question, it may not. In our cycling master plan, it looks at using a in Boulevard multi-use path for Russell Street. Is that something that when we're looking at designing, or MTOs designing that intersection, that we're considering active transportation beyond just pedestrian access?
So through you, Mayor Craig, I don't recall that we've had that discussion with the ministry previously, but it's something we can certainly raise. I do know that, you know, from that master plan, the Durham Street location primarily did have, you know, that type of infrastructure incorporated into the plan. So we can take a look back at Russell and share that conversation with MTO and see what opportunities there are.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Adam, good presentation. You probably know that I can't support this 100%. I see you shaking your head. You're there. The East Leg really bothers me, mainly because, you know, I was through the 2020 and everything else, and we thought we had a good step moving forward with the investment. Smart Center has not done anything for us and brought anything to the table. How much is the East Leg part of this proposal? How much is it going to cost us? Because there's a risk associated, because the front end agreement isn't signed, and I'm not so sure that Smart Center is going to sign it. So what is that cost? And then I'll have another follow-up question, please.
So through you, Mayor Craig, the estimate provided by the ministry is, in round figures, is $1 million. I think the previous estimate was $1 million and change, so.
Okay.
Sorry, just a minute, Councillor Stewart, just for clarification, is that the total cost or the municipal cost?
So through your Mayor Craig, that is the total municipal cost for the East Leg. So that's any turn lanes, the stub, et cetera. Any other improvements to the intersection that the ministry was already planning, such as signalization and anything to do with the existing quadrants of the intersection, would be their expenditure.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you very much. And through you again, it's a big cost again. You know, we got $1 million plus into it already. We even have some borrowing money for another 3 million. We put another $1 million. I really need you, Adam, to do your best to get a front end agreement. I just can't support, I can support everything about this except the East Leg at this current moment. And I'm not sure if I can do a friendly amendment to try to remove the East Leg until we get a front end agreement. I'm not sure if that's possible. Thank you.
So we need somebody to comment a little bit on that before we go further. Can you explain why we could or could not do that, please?
So through you, Mayor Craig, the purpose or the intent of presenting council with these agreements here this evening is to position the ministry to advance their tendering process for the upgrades at the intersection. If we were to be in a position to support these, they would naturally be able to proceed as they're planning. If there is any type of delay in what we're planning to do here, we would have to have discussion with the ministry on opportunities to potentially augment their procurement process. An example in my mind would be to see if the East Leg components could be listed as provisional items in a tendering process to allow us to close out our component.
CAO, please.
Just for clarification as well, I don't think you could direct us to enter into the agreement at this phase, because that is what is being proposed is what is part and parcel of the actual agreement. So it would just be deferring if that was the decision.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Sorry, thank you. Through you, Mayor. It's a question to Adam. I'm not a civil engineer or anything in this, but I can imagine that we can foresee that there's going to be an east extension of Russell Street someday, whether it's this year. But I can imagine that if we don't go ahead with a stub right now with drawings that are probably already prepared to include it, when we not only the cost associated with backing out of that, boasting probably money and or time, when it comes time that we do want to build an east stub, it's probably going to cost us quite a bit more than what it would be as part of a overall MTO package for the intersection.
So through you, Mayor Craig, if we were to look at it just you know, from today's perspective and correlating it to current dollar considerations, absolutely, in my opinion, if we were just doing the turn lanes and the east stub as a sole project, it would be higher than the $1 million if the other associated works weren't included from the MTO.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you for a follow-up, Adam. Thank you very much. With all due respect, I know this is a tough one, a real tough one on me. How fast can we talk, or are you talking to Smart Center about a front-end agreement? Can we push it with them and get a yes or no in a matter of a week? Or I'm not sure what stage you're at with the agreement. You know, $1 million is a 5% increase to the taxpayers. You know, it's considerable if we don't see any land development for another 4 years.
So through your Mayor Craig, I mean, there's two vendors here. Those discussions I would hope could happen relatively quickly. We've done enough work between Mount Forest and Kincardine Ave with, I'll call them draft sample type templates that, you know, we have some good framework to work from. And our legal support has been excellent in you know, tight turnaround. So, you know, over the next couple of weeks, I think we could have a good understanding of what their position would look like.
Counselor?
Thank you very much. And through you, Mayor, I'm sorry to be pushing this. I'm just really concerned. Adam, if we decide on council to defer this for a couple of weeks, do you think that, you know, you said that we might have an answer. I don't want to push you too much, but it would be a lot more comfortable to get a yes or no, and then I'd feel more secure in supporting it. We're going to need it sooner or later. I'm just worried about the $1 million and the lack of support that Smart Center has given us in the last 4 years.
Just to incorporate that, is there some time constraints on this motion itself? Where's the time pressures for you, Director, please?
Through you, Mayor Craig. Realistically, I mean, the ministry has been trying to move this project forward for some time. Their comments are openly vague in a sense that they're hoping to do the work this year, but haven't given firm timelines. So I'm hesitant to state that I've got a time constraint. I know they want to move it forward. I know the community wants to see the project, as do we. But I think, you know, to tie into Councillor Stewart's concerns, I don't have any reservation if council wants to defer this, and we bring it back to the meeting in March to make a decision.
I got to think about this one. I'm sorry, Adam. Let me put a friendly motion and just see what the rest of the council, you know, because I know we need this really badly, but how about we defer this decision for 2 weeks until the first meeting of March?
For the motion, is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Blackwell, please. Discussion regarding deferral. Deputy Mayor, please.
I just wonder if that's sufficient time. Is 2 weeks realistic? I think it's just the question.
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Craig. I would suggest that we aim for the 13th. That's 3 weeks. That allows for, you know, a couple weeks of back and forth with the developers, and then ensures that we're not holding up our clerks and that in terms of getting things into an agenda.
So the motion would be to defer to March 13.
Correct. That's right.
Any more discussion regarding the deferral? All in favor? Opposed? And that is 4-4. So just a minute. Can you all in favor of deferral? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's carried. Okay. Okay. So that this motion is deferred for 3 weeks, March 13.
Good luck, Adam.
Number G. What's G? Golf? South Bruce OPP Detachment Legislative Services. We need a mover and seconder that Councillor Kavanaugh be appointed as the council representative for the South Bruce OPP Detachment Board. The council authorized staff to continue working with the working group, which includes clerks, deputy clerks, or clerks and/or deputy clerks from South Bruce, here in Kinloss, Brockton, and Erin Elderslie. to prepare the necessary drafts and proposals relating to the South Bruce OPP Detachment Board in anticipation of the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 coming into effect on April 1st, 2024, and that the correspondence and resolution from the municipality of Brockton proposing to convene a transition committee related to the South Bruce OPP Detachment Board be noted and filed. Moved and seconded by Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Prenger. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, this has been a very interesting experience for myself. I've been on the Police Services Board for a little over a year, and we've been told that this is coming down from the province any day now. So a year later, of course, to our surprise, the province comes along and says, we'd like to have this transition where we're bringing together essentially five police services boards into one, seeking some efficiencies, and we'd like to have you up and functioning now by April 1st. To that end, I have full confidence in our staff. Perhaps if our clerk would like to clarify just a little bit of what that second paragraph would entail, just to put everyone's mind at ease at what's happening here, because it certainly seems like there's a lot going on.
Through you, Chair. So yes, this has been a long time coming. We're still waiting on the finalization of the regulations for the one detachment board process. But what the working group is currently working on, and what we will only be working on basically, is a procedure bylaw for that board. So it's something to get that board started, a procedure for them to start working with. And as a board, they can, once they get seated, they could decide to change that procedure. But this is basically that procedure bylaw for them. The second thing that we're working on is something we'll be bringing back to council when it's finalized, is a process for how this committee will choose its two community members. So in talking with the province, all 5 councils have to agree on those 2 community members. So councils, not councilors, council. So the process that is being proposed by our neighbors to the north, the Grey Bruce Detachment, is going to be that the 5 council members come together, do an initial vet of those people, and then bring those recommendations back to their councils. And so we'll be bringing that finalized sort of procedure back as a draft for councils to approve. And again, it will be for all 5 councils to approve those, all before April 1st, 2024.
Thank you. And through the chair, so with your support and your patience, I hope that we can get through this transition period without the need of a formal committee of some kind of transition. Hopefully the staff can lay the groundwork, and then by April 1st, the 5 councillors that have been appointed by their respective councils will be meeting and working through the details of how this is going to go forward.
So just to confirm the first part of this, you are willing to remain as our representative on this new detachment board? Okay. Councillor Blackwell, you had a question, please?
Yes, thank you. Through you. In our budget, we had a line item for our police services board. And if I'm remembering correctly, at least 2 of the municipalities didn't previously have a police services board. When the funds are rolled over into the new broader detachment, is there going to be any kind of reconciliation, I guess, with the new members?
I have no intent of answering that question, but he can. So that's the answer.
Yes, and through the chair, that is all part of that fund transition process that's going to have to get worked out and negotiated between the councillors that are representing their respective municipalities as we go forward. Thank you.
So I value the input of our municipal staffs. I'm not suggesting they couldn't, but I appreciate the thought that our staff is putting together the procedural bylaw, but it is the council representatives who are sitting down and having the discussion and bringing back the recommendations. This is how we think we should do it. This is how we think we should do this and that and the other thing. So thank you for clarifying that, and that helps a lot. Deputy Mayor, you had a question, please.
Actually, I was just going to say I have full confidence that this transition will go really smoothly. So I wonder if we can call a vote.
All right. All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? That's carried. All right, some matters for decision. We have a notice of motion submitted prior to the meeting. Yeah, so the additional items, they come in later and, yeah. So we have a provincial municipal fiscal arrangement motion moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Mike Hinchberger. Whereas current provincial municipal fiscal arrangements are undermining Ontario's economic prosperity and quality of life, and whereas nearly a third of municipal spending in Ontario is for services in areas of provincial responsibility and expenditures are outpacing provincial contributions by nearly $4 billion a year, and whereas municipal revenues such as property taxes do not grow with the economy or inflation, and whereas unprecedented population and housing growth will require significant investments in municipal infrastructure, and whereas municipalities are being asked to take on complex health and social challenges like homelessness, supporting asylum seekers, and addressing the mental health and addiction crisis, and whereas inflation, rising interest rates, and provincial policy decisions are sharply constraining municipal fiscal capacity, and whereas property taxpayers, including people on fixed incomes and small businesses, can't afford to subsidize income redistribution programs for those most in need. Whereas the province can and should invest more in the prosperity of communities. Whereas municipalities and the provincial government have a strong history of collaboration, now therefore, be it resolved that the province of Ontario commit to undertaking with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario a comprehensive social and economic prosperity review to promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario, and further that a copy of this motion be sent to the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Finance, MPP Lisa Thompson, and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Motions, reschedule February 28th regular meeting motion. We need a mover and seconder that council approve an exemption to section 11(1)A of the Municipality of Kincardine Procedural Bylaw number 2023-138 to permit the regular council meeting on Wednesday, February 28th, 2024 be rescheduled to Wednesday, March 6, 2024 due to scheduling conflict. Moved by councilors Hinchberger and Blackwell. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Consideration of bylaws. Kincardine Kinloss Municipal Drain Bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that Kincardine Kinloss Municipal Drain Branch A be deemed to be read to be read a third time. And finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2022-182, moved by councilors Deputy Mayor Clark and Steinoff Gray. All in favor? That's carried. Municipal Access Agreement with Bruce Telecom, 2024 bylaw. Need a mover and seconder that the Municipal Access Agreement Bruce Telecom bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2024-15. Moved by councilors Hinchberger and Deputy Mayor Clark. Would you like to speak to this just really briefly while I get a drink of water?
Certainly through you, Mayor, the access agreement is consistent with the share purchase agreement that the municipality agreed that we would enter into this type of an agreement. Essentially, it's reflecting what's already happened, but making sure that it's noted that the infrastructure is in the ground. If there was new infrastructure that was coming into place from some other telecommunications service provider, you would enter into a similar type of an agreement. But also to note that federal legislation pretty much requires that we do allow that infrastructure in our right-of-ways.
All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Maintenance repair of municipal drain bylaws. We need a mover and seconder that the following bylaws are hereby read first, second, and third time, finally passed this 14th day of February 2024. The Holtby Municipal Drain Maintenance Bylaw, Kennedy Municipal Drain Extensions Maintenance Bylaw, Kennedy Municipal Drain Huron Extension Maintenance Bylaw, Kincardine Kinloss Municipal Drain Maintenance Bylaw, Kincardine Kinloss Municipal Drain Kinloss Maintenance Bylaw, and the Norm MacArthur Municipal Drain Maintenance Bylaw. Moved and seconded by Counselor Steinoff, Gray, and Counselor Hinchberger. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, motion to pass bylaws. We need a mover and seconder that the following bylaws are hereby read first, second, third time. Finally passed this 14th day of February 2024. Designate CIP areas bylaw 2024. CIP policy adoption bylaw 2024. Amend zoning bylaw 1397 concession 9 MacArthur bylaw. Award tender number 9417 Kincardine Kinloss drain improvement bylaw. Traffic and parking amendment bylaw. And the Russell Street improvement and the Russell Street will be deferred. Thank you for that reminder. Moved and seconded by Councillor Steinoff, Gray, and Prenger. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. The Brown McCullough Airport Hangar Lease Transfer Bylaw. This is the addition to the agenda. We need a mover and seconder that the Brown McCullough Airport Hangar Lease Transfer Bylaw be deemed to be read first, second, third time. Finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2024 something. Moved and seconded by Councillors Blackwell and Stewart. Clerk, could you just explain roughly what this bylaw does for us?
So basically, we have existing hangar leases, and Corey can jump in if I'm doing this wrong, but basically we have existing hangar leases, and section 16 of the existing agreement states that the tenant may assign the lease provided that the landlord has provided written consent. So we as the landlord need to consent for them to transfer their lease to another leasee.
Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. This would be an appropriate time to take that bio break. We will reconvene in 6 minutes in closed session to receive. We won't be in closed, but we will need a motion to move into closed at that time. So anyone who is here that is not needed to be here, Dwayne, you can go home now.
So are we gonna?
So we are
come back out and do consent. So we're gonna go into closed and then we'll come back out and do consent.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we're
just.
still live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Welcome back, folks. We're going to start with our consent agenda. No, we're still in open session. Once our lawyer comes online, then we will move into closed. So at this time, we have the consent agenda, and once again, items listed are considered routine unless any counselor would like to pull one for consideration either this evening or at a future council meeting. And there he is. Are there any counselors that would like to have any of these consent items addressed? Okay, we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Moved by Councilors Hinchberger and Blackwell. All in favor? And that's carried. You gotta love it, eh? Okay. All right, I need a mover and seconder. The council move into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended for the, no, not yet. Not until we pass the motion, because we're still in open session. As amended for the purpose of considering the closed session minutes dated January 2024. Position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Bruce Telecom update. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, committee of council. And further, that council return to regular open meeting upon completion. Moved by Councilors Hinchberger and Steinoff Gray. All in favor? That's carried. Now you can close the door, Nicole, as you're leaving.